This is the April 10th meeting of the Grosse Ile Township Public Services Commission, and I'd like to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to call the roll. Posias?
Present.
Mr. Riley called and he is out of town, so he won't be here tonight. Mr. Kent?
Here.
Mr. Budney?
Present.
Mr. Van Oz?
Present.
So we have a quorum, and we're going to proceed with this evening's meeting. Next, we need to look at the agenda and ask for approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All right. I understand there's one item at least we want to delete.
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Supervisor. I'd like to make a motion that we amend the budget to remove action item number 1, which is the Meridian Road water main replacement.
Yes, and I understand we're just not ready to have the details on the total project yet, so we'll put that off to our May meeting. So that's deleted from the agenda. And I'd like to add an item, item number 6, under discussion items, and we'll call it traffic counts. Any other items to add or delete? Hearing none. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Next, we have the minutes of our February 14th meeting. Are there any comments, additions, corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and supported that the minutes of our February 14th meeting be approved as distributed. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Item number 6, you have approval of bills, pages 13 through 19 of our packet. You have vouchers 13,057 to 13,067. Are there any questions or concerns?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and supported that the vouchers be approved as presented to us. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The vouchers are approved. For your review, we have statements of revenues and expenses, and of course, we're just beginning the fiscal year, so this reflects the end of the last fiscal year. This is the last report through March 31st, and most of our accounts show that they're close to 100% paid or transferred or whatever. Any questions on these? If not, we'll receive and file the approval of the statements of revenues and expenses. Next, we have on page 29 of our report, 29 and 30, the Treasurer's Report for public service funds. Any questions on the Treasurer's Report? If not, I'll ask you to keep page 30 handy as we discuss capital improvements, which reflects some of the fund balances for drains, bike path, and roads. So keep that handy. Entertain a motion to approve the Treasurer's Report.
So moved. Second.
Move supported Treasurer's Report for March 2012 be approved as distributed. If there are no other questions, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Then the Treasurer's Report is approved as received. Next, we have the DPS Manager's Report. Barry?
Yes, good evening. First item on my report is a county-sponsored household hazardous waste collection. I have 4 days here that I could give out. Saturday, April the 14th is the first one. It's going to be held at the Romulus Civic Center. And again, this is for household hazardous waste. This is free to any county resident. Romulus Civic Center is on Wayne Road in Romulus. The next one is June the 23rd, and that's going to be held at Henry Ford Community College. August 25th, Westland Shopping Center, and October the 13th, Southland Shopping Center on Eureka and Taylor. Now, these are areas where you can go and drop off any household hazardous waste material that you would have in your home at no cost. These items are placed on the website. You can get on there and get up-to-date information about it if you don't have it. But it's household hazardous waste. And the item number 2 is they're having a tire and electronics waste event being held May the 12th at the Kennedy Ice Rink in Trenton, in which we co-sponsor with Trenton and Gibraltar. And you can take residential tires, car tires, along with any electronic waste, computers, monitors, things of that nature, and dispose of it at that location. That also is on the website for anybody who would like information. If you would like information that you can obtain from the website, just give our office a call, and we'd be more than happy to give you any information that you need regarding that. So,
As we've done in the past, particularly for these hazardous waste events, don't we put something on the cable TV?
Yes.
As well? So again, the most important one that's coming up this Saturday, for anybody viewing or anybody in the audience, it's April 14th, this Saturday, at the Romulus Civic Center, which is located at 11111 Wayne Road. And that's, the Romulus City Hall is really north of, or south of Goddard. It's Goddard and Wayne Road. It's over by the airport, on the west side of the airport. So if anybody is interested, and also the next event is Saturday, June 23rd, at Henry Ford Community College at Evergreen Road in Dearborn. And then there's a couple others, but we're going to publicize them on the website. Wally?
Mr. Chair, one more. On May 4th, Wayne State is having an e-waste event, and anyone needs information on it, give me a call. It's from 9 o'clock till 4 o'clock. Those of you who work downtown or in the new center area who want to bring a computer or a toaster or something like that down, we will accept it from you. It'll be on the corner of Cass and the service drive for I-94.
Very good, thank you. Any other discussion on those items? All right.
that's it for me, Bill.
If not, we can move on to discussion items. And from the agenda, and I assume most people in the audience have an agenda now? Were there enough there? Yes. The first item, Meridian Road water main replacement, we discussed it a little bit earlier, but that item is going to be, it was removed from the agenda because all the data that we needed wasn't available, mostly engineering estimates and so forth. So that's deleted. Second is an update on the bike path, or not the bike path, I'm sorry. We got a letter from a resident, an unsigned letter, resident unknown, but a very well-written letter asking, I'll read it, and it was addressed to the township clerk. Can red rubber handicap mats, and there are some installed at Ferry and Meridian at the present time, and also another location on the at the corners for the safe routes to schools,
Yes.
sidewalks, and these are actually embedded in the concrete, and they're part of the ADA, which is the American Disabilities Act, and they're asking, can the red rubber handicap mats with the word "stop" molded in them be installed on bike paths at each intersection instead of the random, confusing small baby stop signs. It would, and that the fact that those are small baby stop signs, I don't know, that's an opinion. It would help with handicapped blind persons and also eliminate the mix of large and small stop signs. The city of Taylor has red reflector bars mounted to the iron base rod to the ground of all the stop signs, and they're asking that the same red bar be installed on ours, which are better illuminated, reflected at night. So that can easily be done as well. We don't have any plan to tear up the current bike paths. I think that if we were to do it today, that we'd have to comply with ADA and install those red mats. So we'll keep the letter, and unless there's any further objection, that when we do make repairs or rebuild the bike paths at the roads, that we would install the mats per the ADA requirements. Are there any further comments by any board members?
Yes, I've seen some of these mats down in the downtown area, and quite frankly, they're not holding up. They are particularly affected by people who use snowplows. They tear them right out of the ground, and their intention in the downtown area were to assist people who were visually challenged, because it's a change in texture when you walk over them. And I think that's a pretty noble gesture, but we've got to figure out a better way, or else we'll be replacing them all the time.
And I think the reality is we have the request, so anytime new sidewalks are built by the ADA standards, we have to put the handicap elements to the sidewalk or the bike path in place at the intersection, so we'll comply with the law on that. It's a good suggestion.
Mr. Chair, is the ADA requirement to place that round-knobbed texture? Because I've seen them stamped into the road ends and the sidewalk ends, and those seem to hold up.
Yeah, and I can't answer your question. I don't know what the ADA standard, I know it's been controversial over the last decade as to what is the correct standard or not, but our engineers should know.
That's a good question to ask.
Any other further discussion on that item? Item number 3, maybe why I see a couple people look familiar to me. We have several people in the audience, and so I'll try to outline this, and then we'll let people speak if that's what people are here for. Item 3 is prioritize road repairs and maintenance. I'll start by saying that every year, this commission, we go together in a van and we drive a number of roads. Not every road in the township, because not every road in the township requires improvements. But every year we attempt to drive the roads that staff or myself or other members know where there's either a drain problem or a road surface problem, need for repairs or maintenance. And we look at other capital projects, such as where water main improvements might go and so forth. So today is the day that we did that. We assembled at 4 o'clock today and spent a couple hours on the road. And then we've been meeting ever since then and trying to prioritize what notes we took, what needs to be repaired. And basically, today, where we ended up with is we drove several roads for a couple hours, looked at several projects. We came up with a list, and I'm going to try to reflect that list. First of all, I think I'll start. We did, I see at least Mr. Rossi that I know here. And how many people are here from LaSalle Court? Almost the whole audience. So I'll start there. Almost the whole LaSalle Court. Anyway, we did drive LaSalle Court and spent a few minutes talking about it, and actually several minutes talking about it. So I think in the opinion of the board, it's one of the worst road conditions in the township. We talked about the need to budget money to make a fix. We talked about the need that in the past, we haven't had the money to put aside in any one year enough to do the road in any one year. So what we talked about with regard to the LaSalle Court is setting some money aside this year and likely next year. And what we propose to do is in the next and I'm going to say 30 days, we didn't set a time limit on it, but before our May meeting, which is the second Tuesday of May, try to arrange a meeting with all the residents, and hopefully all the residents, with the members of this commission, to discuss LaSalle Court. And we will prepare some funding analysis for various means, for alternative funding analysis. So what I'm trying to say is we recognize we can't, and in fact we have a cost estimate of nearly between $130,000 and $140,000 to do LaSalle Court, which surprised me. I think a big part of that is, and it's on the high side, but a big part of that is drainage. We don't know what caused the failure in the road. There's a good chance that with all the connections with irrigation systems and maybe poor drainage and maybe poor sub-base, because none of us, and probably not you, were here when that road was built. We don't know what's underneath the road. We know that at the joints it's failed, and something has to be done. So we're ready, now that we have our 5-year millage approved, we're ready to try to proceed with that improvement. Whether we'll be able to do it in 2 years or longer, I don't know. But we're willing to sit down with you and have a separate meeting on it and talk about it. We also, somewhat without a lot of optimism, intend to go to the county and approach them in the next few months. We always have an annual meeting with the county, and We're going to put that on our agenda and ask if they can contribute some funds, because technically the county owns the road. You know, all the roads in a township in Michigan are owned by county road commissions, and LaSalle is no different. But we also know that the county has told most communities in Wayne County, as same is true in Oakland County, we don't have the resources anymore to fix your neighborhood streets. You're going to have to figure out a way to do it yourself, or wait a long time. So with that outline, I'll ask anybody from the commission wish to add anything that I haven't said, and then we'll open it up for your comments. Anybody else want to comment on it?
Yeah, I'd like to. Mr. Rossi and myself have had numerous discussions on this piece of property dating back probably 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. When we had the road millage passed, it was primarily for road maintenance. We asked the voters to pass a 0.4 millage, which generates about $220,000 annually under the current property tax values. We're hoping things will really pick up on Grosse Ile, and that number will go up within the next 4 or 5 years. But as it stands right now, that millage generates about $225,000 a year. We currently have commitments to that for snow removal. We have to participate in Wayne County's snow removal program. Again, because they're limited in funding, if we don't participate in it, they show up when they can get here by participating in their program, which basically means we're paying most of their overtime for the actual work here on Grosse Ile. We're on the top of the list. As I'm sure you've seen when you leave the island, you'll find that most of the primary roads, not secondary roads, because I don't know the last time I've seen a snow plow on my street, ever, other than township, perhaps. We have several residents that live on dirt roads, and we have to do dust control on those roads. Last year, that was budgeted at about $65,000. And then, of course, just for the maintenance aspect of the township, aesthetically, out of that fund also comes roadside mowing in some areas. Now, Wayne County is also responsible for roadside mowing, but if we waited for that, we wouldn't be able to see the road for the bike paths, so we've taken that upon ourselves to be part of this project. That generates or occupies, of that $220,000, about $150,000 annually. That's an estimate. We're hoping that the snow removal bill this year will be much less, because they weren't here very much, thank you. And so consequently, what that leaves us is in the vicinity of $70,000 to address all the roads, residential roads, because we've already made a commitment within this board that we're going to continue to put pressure on Wayne County to do the primary roads. Whether they do that primary road treatment or not, or replacement or repair, remains to be seen, because they do cry poor. They do not have any funding. Their staff is just knocked down to nothing. And I mean, we have trouble even getting permits through Wayne County anymore. I mean, it's a lengthy, tedious, costly process because they're out of money. That's their argument, and I can't argue with it, because from what I see, they're either out of money or somebody's getting an awful lot of, well, we know some of them are. But. So basically, we're sitting on a $70,000 fund balance at the end of our millage that we have to take into consideration every residential road repair. And if we drove for 2 hours today, and I don't think we covered a third of the roads, it's a lot. There are some roads that are in worse condition than others. Mr. Kostick was adamant about addressing the LaSalle Court Road because of its danger. I mean, it's a dangerous street right now. If you had to ride a bike on that street or if you had to walk on that street, it's virtually impossible. There are some options as to how to fix that road, but above all, we as a board want to make sure that the repair is a permanent repair, or repair that justifies the expenditure of $140,000 or any number less than that that we can agree to get your road up to shape. I know you don't want to wait another 2 years to fix your road. But as you see, with $70,000 for the whole township, this board has committed to set aside funds for LaSalle Court. Even if we set aside $70,000, even if we set it all aside for LaSalle Court, we're looking at 2 years. If we do a complete tear down and rebuild of that road. So we as a board would appreciate your input. This may be the time. You might want to do it now. But at some point in time, we need to sit down and come up with a creative solution to fixing LaSalle Court in a relatively short period of time. I can't promise it's going to be done this year. We can put pressure on Wayne County to patch it again, but you know how long that holds up. A couple hours. By the time the truck hits the end of your street, you're already scraping gravel off your shoes. So we as a board would be very interested to hear your thoughts and your ideas. I just want you to know the restraints that we are operating under, and we do understand your position. I know I live on Elba, and we fought the county for years. Finally, we just fixed it because we couldn't wait anymore, and you're in that position. But this board is prepared to help. This commission is prepared to put forward to the township board any reasonable repair, replacement that we can do. But if we don't have the funds to do that, we can't put it forward. So I would really appreciate your input. This commission would appreciate your input and your thoughts on the matter. And we need to find within the next 30 to 60 days a reasonable way forward that you're happy with or able to accept, because I'm not sure we're going to make you happy tonight. I would really like to, but I'm not sure we can do that. But maybe we can. Maybe we can come up with a solution that is one that's right for everybody. So, and I'd ask Mr. Rossi, who's been in the middle of this thing with me, and him and I have gone head-to-head on this a number of times. He's heard my statements and my arguments a number of times. So if you'd like to address this commission, you now have the groundwork that we're operating under and the way we're operating at this point. So I'll turn it back over to the chairman.
Any other members of the commission want to speak at this point? Okay. I think I would just add to Ted's comments that clearly we're not going to do it this year. And the idea is we can save some money. I mean, even if we were to start the engineering process, it wouldn't be able to be built this year. So, but from that standpoint, since we all know your face, Mr. Rossi, you want to start?
Sure. First, I want to thank my fellow neighbors here, most of whom are on the street, for being here tonight. So it's a show of faith and confidence.
Give your address too, then. If you
yes. Again, Chuck Rossi at 8432 LaSalle Court. And again, I want to thank you, Bill, for addressing this early on and for keeping the lines of communication open, as well as you, Ted, and I appreciate that very much, because I know that you're at least focused on the right issues as well as the rest of the DPS Commission here, having seen the remains of what was once a street. I guess there are several things that you said, but if we start with one assumption, and that is the cost of replacement. If it is in fact $120,000 to $130,000, whatever that is, I guess the first question that I would have, as I'm sure all you have, is how do we know that that's a real number? Not questioning you per se, but what is the bid process by which we would get to the most competitive price to do the best job. So that, to me, would be a starting point. And I don't know, after seeing the road today, if that number was something that you knew prior to seeing the road, or if it was something that was based on
Yeah,
some previous research. I know you just didn't pull it out of the air. I just would like to know the process you
We
went
have a
through.
breakdown of the cost estimate.
Yeah.
The township engineer on the 27th of March is... Sound!
What was that?
The sound, you can't hear him.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but not him.
It was done by our township engineer on the 27th of March of this year.
And so we have a cost estimate with a breakdown, and we'll be happy to share that with you.
Okay.
And that includes engineering and all the costs.
All right. So that number, again,
It's on the high side, Chuck.
Yes. No, you did say that.
Estimate on the high side.
Right.
Understanding that we weren't going to do it this year, but who knows what construction costs are going to be. And there was a jump in construction costs at the end of last year. And I understand now, though, that some of the costs for concrete and other things have been down when they've bid jobs in the last 30 days elsewhere. So we won't know until we bid.
Sure. And again, that bid process, and I'm just tossing this out now, is if we could make that as transparent as possible and get as aggressive a number as we can get, I would assume that just like any of us would be doing something in our own homes, I know any employer I've ever worked for, and people that I've managed, I can't accept a bid for any work unless I have at least 3 bids.
Oh, there's a
Right.
standard process for bidding road and sewer jobs that several contractors will have access to.
Okay. So that's the first thing. So we'll size up the number and get it as sharp with a pencil as we can get it. So, but let's just say for the moment that number is at least $100,000. The second item or assumption here is, that there are no monies from the county. And by all the evidence, as you just explained, Ted, that okay, from all outward signs and the experience that you referred to on your own street, would lead one to conclude that there aren't any monies in the county that they could allocate for this.
Right. Mr. Chair, can I just comment?
Sure.
We will endeavor to go to Wayne County within this process. And because we're going to put the majority of the funds into this program, we would hope that there would be some latitude and some assistance. I doubt that we're going to get the assistance. We may get some assistance in permit fees and that kind of thing, but lately their permit department's even impossible to go through. So when I say it's unlikely that they will assist, I know that from conversations with them, sitting down with them and saying, we need your help here, and they'd say, we'd love to help, but we don't have any funds. The next step in this process, once we establish as a commission with the engineer, the process we're going to go through would be to go out for bids. And the problem with going out for bids before we have funds, before we know we have funds available, is we might have to do that bid process again, and it's fairly costly. I mean, if we went out for bids today, came back up with a number that we don't have, which we don't anticipate having the funds to do today, we'd have to do the same process next year because things are going to change. Costs are going to change. Maybe down, maybe up. So just so you know, this is a catch-22. Unfortunately, you're the one that's caught because you live on LaSalle Court. We're the ones that's caught because we don't have the funds and don't have the means to generate the amount of funds that we need to do this project and do it right. Now, there are other options, and I think that's why we need to have a conversation.
Right. And again, I want to be clear, I don't want to monopolize the time of everyone here tonight, but just to get some of these assumptions out, as you said, so that we have at least a baseline we can go from and have a more detailed conversation with the other residents. Because I don't mean to speak only for them. I'm just voicing some things that I heard. And so in regard to that assumption, though, that the county does not have any additional monies, the challenge that I would place back to them, and we'd have to do a little bit of due diligence around it, not that we haven't, but I think we collectively here need to, I think, understand what mitigating factors are there that would free up some monies. So whenever there is the likelihood, and there are incidences I've shared with some of you privately about people that have fallen on the street, so that there is a danger, is the word that you were mentioning, Bill, that's real. I mean, there's the term, clear and present danger, we've heard in a number of other contexts, but there is really a safety/liability issue. And for any attorney that would represent, for instance, the residents, to another attorney at the county with counsel that I've discussed this very issue with, there is a different level of conversation that someone at the county at that point has that eclipses the argument that, well, there isn't money, because there are legal issues that are really inherent in this street, as we all know. So that's another way of looking at it, and we're not going to deliberate that here tonight, but that's another part of the assumption of no money that I think we could address in a constructive way. The third thing is, again, it goes back, I guess, to the legal side, is, what is whether it's a statute of limitations, whatever it may be. But from the earlier research that I've shared here in other township meetings, and I've had these discussions initially with Ken Kusel, 5.5 years ago, the director for civil engineering for the county, where he shared with me regarding the decay of the seams on the road, that there was this bad batch of silica that was used, and they have a record of it. I mean, Kusel wasn't making this up. He actually called me back, having done some research, and the short of it is that there was a period of time, some 15 to 18 months, during the time under which this road was constructed, and it was in the 87, 88 time frame originally, and there was a bad batch of silica that was only used, this wasn't the only area, but on Grosse Seal, to Kusel's knowledge, it was the only place where that silica was used. And he said that his words at the time is that it acts as an agent under varying temperature and moisture conditions, and the extremes that we have here. He said causes, like a cancer was the phrase that he used, the seams to actually decay. Mm-hmm. And he said, I said, well, how did, I was trying to get the sense from him of, did you hold the contractor liable? Because, it's basically fraud when you're paying for something and it's a defective work product. And he said, well, we didn't really know it at the time, and again, to just net out what he said, after I pursued and said, was there any verification and testing of the materials that were used? Just like a contractor in building a home or building anything, you know that there's certain integrity or there isn't within the materials that you showed. Was they didn't do any testing on that road.
There were no testing.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so they had all the earmarks, again, going back, thinking of this from a legal standpoint, where the liability goes back to the county. Since they put in the road, they owned the road, they were responsible for the construction of it, and quote unquote its maintenance. Okay? So for all of that, all those reasons, they should now have to step up and say, I know there may not be monies under the conventional ways, but since there is a safety/liability issue, first and foremost, to the residents on the street, and the fact that the taxpayers, prior to the people who own the homes on that street, virtually all of us, who didn't pay taxes for a faulty work product, that now we continue to pay taxes on, that isn't repaired, all of that makes a wonderful news story. I mean, and I'm not trying to point that at anybody sitting up here, but it certainly is something that the county, which has not had the greatest luster in the world right now in the news, including its, the head of the county, well, I think would pay some attention to this. And I was advised by this recently at a board of review meeting where I talked about just this fact, as I shared with a couple of you, about the declining value of the property vis-a-vis the danger and the substandard quality of the road. And that issue, again, is a news story that if you shine the light of truth in the media, if it takes that for people to pay attention, because they haven't paid attention to letters and calls and other things that I've put forth in the last several years with one of my neighbors, Tom Gibson, who's here tonight.
I haven't given up on the safety issue because the county has an obligation to keep the road safe.
Yes.
It's their road. I haven't given up on that issue that they may contribute. I think you need to move on to continue we got your point on that.
Right, okay. So, again, those are the top three items that I hear, and I think give us some grounds of at least some promise that maybe something can move forward.
So our intent is, before our main meeting,
Yes.
is to sit down with you residents, and before we leave tonight, I will ask what night might work best, not pick a date, but what
Right.
night of the week. There's never a time, but it'd be nice if we could have everybody there.
Yep.
I know you have one vacant lot on the court.
Yes.
Do you know, does the owner live on the island, or?
Yes, he does. He lives a couple streets over.
All right. And maybe if we could get all the residents, and hopefully, or at least a representative of all of them, to a meeting, either the whole commission or a group of us from the commission will sit down with you and talk through. We looked at it in detail tonight. The argument about safety is something that I will certainly make to the county, and you'll be happy. As far as I'm concerned, you can join us when we do.
Thank you.
We're going to pursue all funding sources, and we'll see what happens. So we need to have a discussion with just you folks to talk about the cost estimate and talk about options and when we might be able to do something. And, even if there's something you wish to contribute over a long period of time, who knows? So we're going to pursue all those and come back to you with some data. That's our intent.
Sure.
So it's on our priority list as a top priority.
Okay. Thank you. I don't know if anyone else...
Oh, sure, we hope that other people will
Sure.
speak too.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before Chuck sits down. Chuck, just quick, how many people are on your court?
There's 9 homes.
9 homes?
Right.
Okay,
And one vacant lot.
One vacant lot.
all right, thanks.
Yes, sir. Please give your name and address and for the record.
I'm Mark Lovis, 8333 LaSalle Court. We can argue about the safety issue, and we're all aware of that. In the past, there have been repairs done along the seams that really were not as good as possible. And I don't want to preclude replacement of the road, but if we fall short on replacing the road in the near future, is there any improved repair that could be made so that it's made safe until a replacement of the road can be made?
Off the top of my head, I mean, to try to go down and
Saw cut?
the way they saw cut traditionally along the joint and take 2 feet of a swath, you'd almost consume the whole road anyway. The one that we talked about today, just in passing, and I don't know that would, I don't think it'd be acceptable to you, is put a thin layer of asphalt over it until the money's available. But thin layer of asphalt for that distance might cost $20,000, $30,000 all the way around the court. And that might look like the devil, frankly, with your concrete curbs. So I don't know that we are accomplishing anything there.
Well, the one thing it might accomplish, though, is I have a daughter, she rides her bike up and down there, she falls in the cracks. It may save her a little bit.
Getting hurt, right.
But in the interim, I think we need to explore doing something to make it safer.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mark, before you leave the mic, the reason that we want to sit down, you made a very valid point. We probably could, at a much reduced cost, maybe within our budget structure, do some repairs to this. It would not be long-lasting repairs, obviously, and they probably would not address the problems of that road. We don't even know what the problems are as long as there's concrete on top. We know there's problems, obviously. Mr. Rossi feels that it's a silica problem, and that may be the only problem, but I'm not sure it's the only problem. So that's why it's important for us to sit down, because you may say, if you got $30,000 you can put into this road, give me a $30,000 repair. But I certainly don't want to take that in front of the board, and when that project is done, have anybody from that court come into me and say, you wasted my money.
I agree with that. What was the mechanism by which we had Park Lane fixed?
Basically, it was based on road volume.
Traffic volume.
In traffic volume and funds available at the time.
And that was done through the county, or was it done through Gross?
No, that was done by the township.
But we made several repairs of intersections, Church Road and Meridian, Ferry Road and Meridian, several all over but we felt that Park Lane was a collector road and that we had to get it fixed. And we feel like your road has to be fixed, too.
Mr. Chair, just one comment. The funds that were available from that was from a road millage that ended 7 or 8 years ago, and there was a concerted effort to utilize that money throughout the island, and that was part of the project deemed most serviceable to the most people. We didn't get off on the side roads for the most part. And your road was a problem at that time. Mr. Rossi and I had that conversation when they were doing that road. But that money obviously was spent and is gone. Now we have a little addition to that, but we need to move forward.
Okay.
Obviously, the first project was not handled properly, and if we don't handle the second project properly, we're going to be in the same boat. Maybe not me or this board, but the next board, and that's just not where we want to end up on this.
Was there any analysis of Park Lane as to why it decayed to such a
I'm
great
sure it was the
extent?
same reason. No, there was...
Looked like the same to me.
Yeah, it is the same, but, if they did an analysis, then we know where we're at.
But again, Wayne County was not prepared to assist on that project. Those were road monies that taxpayers, yourself included, myself included, had to pay out to get those roads fixed. It's not fair. And I don't know that you could not be successful if you chose to put an attorney on this case and go after Wayne County for the rights that you obviously feel you deserve. But I'm also not sure that the end result would be what you wanted it to be, and you could be into this project for well over the cost of that road, just paying to fight them to do that road. And we run into this situation all the time. But there may be, and that's why we as a board requested, or we as a commission requested a sit-down with you guys to see what you'll accept. And maybe there is an answer out there.
Well,
maybe there's a simple answer.
I guess that's why we're here, because we're relying on your expertise to guide us in the direction, because we want this done in the most expedient way we can.
Sure, I understand that.
Thank you.
And what I can say to you is, the feeling here is, now that we got this millage approved, we had a bond issue that was not approved by the voters. We asked for 1 3/4 mills to be restored, which is what we had before, years and years ago. And that was defeated 2-1. We came back with this alternative millage for maintenance. So that's the best we have right now, but we're committed that's a top priority for us. We just have to work out the timing and the financing, and we're working on it right now.
Thank you.
Who's next?
My name's Tom Gibson, 8482 LaSalle Court. I just wanted to let the commission know that Chuck Rossi and I began this journey with the township in 2004. It's been 8 years, and we're very appreciative of this commission giving this serious consideration. The only thing I can add is that I observed the pouring of the road on Park Lane. I saw them digging out the concrete, and I noticed there weren't any drain tiles coming out of it. I approached one of the workers at the time and asked them if there were drain tiles. He said, "I can't comment on that. You have to talk to my boss." So I went over to the boss and I said, "I don't see a pile of old drain tiles anywhere." There weren't any, but they did put drain tiles in. I'm convinced that that's part of our problem. However, the silica problem is real. The winter before last, Wayne County came by, and I'm right at the end of the court, and the blade caught the driveway a little bit. So I went out in the summer and tried to repair it, and all I had was a small screwdriver to start trying to dig out so I could pour some concrete down there and hit something solid. I went down about 8 inches. Just with a little screwdriver, it's just all brittle, and there's nothing there. It's nothing there.
It's like powdering.
I've got pictures from 2004, and at that time, the concern was the cracks in the road, because people were getting caught in them, and they were falling on their bikes, and the cracks are about that wide. And I can show you pictures of what it looked like in 2004. And you were out there today, you see what it looks like. So in 8 years, it's gone from like this to this. I don't know if we can go any more than a couple more years.
Well, hopefully we won't have to.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Okay, very good. Anybody else? Any new input? Yes, sir.
Jules LaRusso, 23489 Park Lane, here to support my neighbors. Just curious, just apologize for being late, but was there any discussion of going after the original contractor? Was that part of what you covered already? A little bit. Okay.
Well, I don't know if you can, this many years past, I mean, I would, who knows? I'm not an attorney. But, no, there wasn't any discussion on that.
I would just make a comment on that. It well exceeds, we have checked with the township. We're going back 3 or 4 years ago. The township attorney at that time. It's well beyond any statute of limitations. And it would be very difficult to prove that he intentionally defrauded Wayne County, but because it's a county road, we as a township couldn't do anything anyway. It would have to be a county action after that contractor. And once the county releases the bond that's put forth on these projects, we've had this issue happen a number of times. Once the county accepts the road and releases the bond, that releases the contractor. We had a bond at one time, and that releases the contractor. He's moved on. I don't even know if he's still in business. My guess is, with that kind of work, probably not. But those are the issues we have to deal with. Understanding that it's a county road, we're very limited as to our legal avenues, except to go after the county, and I don't think that would be fruitful for anybody.
Well, and the norm for this is when you pave a road, you do the testing. You take concrete cores out of the pavement and have it tested immediately to make sure that the right mix, that's not too dry and not too much air in it, that the right mix is there that was spec'd out. So it gets pretty complicated, but apparently they didn't do it. I wasn't around then, and I doubt if anybody else was. Certainly you weren't living there. And I want to address Tom's comment. Tom Gibson, you asked about drainage. I think it was you, Tom.
Yes.
In this budget, there's $15,000 for edge drain, so it would be put in. Engineers feel that contributed to the deterioration. So, if there's no further comments on this one, because it is the most costly, we talked about setting money aside, and so we'll have this meeting with you. And before we leave the topic, if we could pick out a Tuesday night on the next month sometime, can I work with you, Mr. Rossi, directly? And we'll see what members of the commission wish to meet, and we'll give us a couple of weeks at least. Maybe it'll be closer to our next meeting is, we're into May 8th. Maybe the Tuesday night before that or something like that. I don't even know what date that is. That's May 1st? Something like that. See if we can work out a time where we have enough time to tweak these figures and put some other thoughts together and then have something to present to you.
Okay, thanks.
Maybe we could even come to one of the homes or find a room here to meet in and at least get information exchanged, okay?
Okay.
So thank you very much for your input tonight. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
It is a priority for us. We, since we're on this topic, we also talked about several other roads where we've identified failures, much smaller. One you might be familiar with is an area you don't have access to directly, but on Manchester Court, immediately west of your street, there are 2 driveways, and in front of those 2 driveways, there's about 10 sections on just the one side of the road up against the curb where the road has failed. And it's broken up, and these are slabs. So we're talking about doing a Marquette Court repair. This would be in the vicinity of a few $1,000s. We also talked about repairs on Manchester Road, which is a concrete slab road that connects Meridian to East River Road. So I'm going to review our whole list right now. So we have Manchester Road repairs. We have Marquette Court. On 2 roads that adjoin East River Road, Stout and Island. So from Ferry as you go north, both Stoughton Island have drainage problems, and the road is very bad as it approaches East River. We talked about these last year and didn't do anything. What we're talking about is 100 to 150 foot of asphalt overlay, essentially mill the roads, and again, these are much smaller projects, and we're talking about just for about 100 feet so that cars are not coming down the little grade that's there on an AC day before you get to East River, and then having to deal with not only stopping, but stopping on a very bumpy segment of road with drainage problems. So we talked about looking, what we're talking about here is have our engineer go out and do an estimate of what it's going to take to make the fix and what the cost would be. Then we would go out for bids. So those two roads. In the Potawatomi subdivision, which is the area south of Church Road between Meridian and, I'm telling you all this since we have an audience tonight, Meridian and East River, we have several failures of slabs, individual slabs scattered throughout, so we would spend a few $1,000s repairing those slabs. In front of two residences on Canterbury Street, 21748, 21760, there's a two catch basins that have failed where the slabs are caving in around the catch basins, and those involve just a few slabs. We're talking about making those repairs. On HCL Jackson, which is north of about a half mile or quarter mile north of Church, HCL Jackson at Knudsen, there's pavement failure, again attributed to catch basins, and the road is caving in. And at HCL Jackson and O'Donnell, on a curve there, the road is failing. Talked about making those repairs. And then we talked about doing about $50,000 of crack sealing, where you put a tar, emulsion, hot tar in open joints, not wide joints, but small joints, cracks. We did that a few years ago on Ferry. I think you all know where Ferry is. And that helps preserve the road. In fact, Ferry's held up pretty well through this winter, unlike Church Road. So we talked about crack sealing at, so we want to proceed with those improvements, so that we looked at those. Also, there's two drainage projects. There's one at the south end of the island. It's near Albemarle and Wilbur, which is in our budget. We talked about proceeding with the engineering for that. And then another one is adjoining Park Lane Elementary School on Park Lane. For now, we'll call it the Park Lane School Drain Project. And that's a complicated one. It affects some ball fields. The drainage doesn't work, and there's a flooding problem there. So we want to get an engineering estimate to do those projects. So those are basically what we've taken from our road tour today, including LaSalle, and we want to proceed with those. So again, it says on our agenda that we would take action to the ones that I just mentioned, where we have small improvements we wish to undertake. Should we put that under action items?
Yes.
Move it to action items?
Yes.
And the recommendation there is to simply go out and ask the township board to authorize the engineering so we can go out and do the sizing up and estimate what work in each of those areas I just talked about for this summer would take place. So with the motion, I'd ask that this be put under action items, what I just outlined.
So moved.
I will second that.
And I think the secretary, hopefully you've made the list that I have just read from, so. Okay, so it's been moved that and supported that we take up tonight under action items a recommendation to move forward with these smaller improvements. Any further discussion? Mr. Clark.
Woody Clark, Park Lane. What about E-Course? What about East River and Church Road? That piece of crap that's sitting there.
Well, we looked at that,
and I hope you didn't bypass it, because a lot of people use that road.
Yeah.
A lot, not just these nick and cranny places you went to.
Well, I think that Mr. Sedlak, our director, indicated that He's talked with the county about that?
Are you going to do that deal?
I talked to Lonnie from Maintenance this afternoon. He called. He was supposed to go with us on the tour, but he couldn't make it. And he did say two of the projects that he wants to focus on this summer is, one, the intersection at Church and East River, and then he wants to get your speed bumps removed over on West River Road.
How about the speed bump on Meridian?
I'll have him throw that one in, too.
You know what I'm talking about?
I don't. Where is it?
Yeah.
You just drive on it, you'll find it.
I drive Meridian every day.
Okay, you go from Grove Road to Manchester.
Oh, that's...
On the right-hand side.
Okay.
Do about 50, you'll find it.
Okay. I don't want to speed. All right.
Well, I'm glad that we're going to do East River, because that's a mess. I hear there's water running
From St. Anne's down Church Road. Did anybody say that to you, Eddie?
There's a couple of drains that they put in last summer.
Yeah.
One that drains the cemetery area, and one that they've run from the sump pump in the building. And I've met with them this past winter, and this summer they're going to have to get those drains redirected, so it doesn't spill out onto Church
Resident
Road.
hit me for it, and that's the one you come and fix.
You know, after you
I
raised
have to come up here.
you raised the issue, I think, at our last meeting. You raised the issue about the drainage at our last meeting, am I correct?
I don't think so. I ran about the East River Road and Church Road I've been bitching about.
Yeah, but I think you talked about the drainage problem there, too, because it was indicated that there was some work being done by the county on the drains, and we talked about it. It was talked about a little bit anyway, whether you brought it up or somebody did. But I went out there, and Frank, you were talking about it, I went out there and looked after a rain, and it looked like it was draining fairly well to me. Does anybody have any input on that? Have you seen it after a rain?
No, but I have two more I want to talk about.
Last summer, the county did some pretty extensive drainage work at that intersection.
water laying in the road in the undulations, but it's not...
It's not like it was before, yeah.
You know, the one corner up against St. Anne's Chapel held a lot of water in the past, and I didn't notice it last time I looked during a...
But that does run down to Church Road, doesn't it?
Yeah, they
Down the
put
East River
a
Road,
structure in
all
right on the corner now. On the corner where St. Anne's is, they put a catch basin structure there last summer, and that drains most of the corner.
You have other things you want to talk about? You want to wait till public comment?
Mr. Chair,
Are they ready?
Mr. Chair,
Just on this.
you have a motion, I think we better vote on it, and if we want to go on to something else, we could.
Yeah, so we're going to deal with this. I'm sorry, no, I lost track. Do we have a motion and a second
Okay, I'll be back.
to move this forward? Yes. Any further discussion?
I just have one comment I want to make, especially the people here from LaSalle Court. These repairs that we're making are on roads that are structurally sound roads that have failures. Your road does not. So anything that we do to your road needs to be, it may need to be a ground-up restoration. And that's why we've decided to move in the fashion. This commission has committed to set aside money so that in the foreseeable future, the very foreseeable future, because I agree with the comments made, I don't think we can wait. I mean, you guys are going to have to go out and buy four-wheelers to get in your driveway if this thing stays like this much longer. I understand that. This commission understands that. These repairs that we're about to vote on now are on roads that are structurally sound, have adequate drainage, and we can fix them at a minimal cost to eliminate the possibility of them getting worse, perhaps as bad as the road that you live on. That's why we're moving forward with these roads, just so you understand it. We're not ignoring your roads, trust me. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, if there are no further comments, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So what we're doing is we said we're going to put this under action items. That's the formal procedure, so we'll talk about it again. The next item is annual meeting with Wayne County DPS. Annually, we meet with Wayne County Department of Public Services. We've talked about in the past what we've been doing for repairs or what we need for repairs. And when we had several $1 million to spend, like the ramp improvement coming off the county bridge, we had a lot of things to talk about. Last year, we really didn't have anything to talk about. The year before we had the bond issue, we were telling the county, we're going to go after these bonds, and if we are successful in our plan, we had, for example, Meridian Road and East River, where we programmed, we want to do 3 miles overlay on each of those, but those roads are eligible for federal funding, 80% grants under the federal grant program, if we were fortunate enough. And because of our traffic volumes at the time and other factors, we didn't make any list for federal funding. Of course, now we don't have the 20% match. So we're going to develop an agenda, and I'll let Mr. Rossi know. It's a public meeting. When we have the meeting, we'll be talking about sometime the end of May or into June. But we have an annual meeting with them, and we'll develop an agenda. And it's conceivable that we get our act together, we could put the LaSalle Court on that agenda as well. So it's usually a daytime meeting, though, I have to tell you. And but I'm only telling you all this so that you understand. So what this board has to do is, we won't pick a meeting out tonight. What I'd like is, any thoughts you have, authorization, I'll just proceed in trying to schedule something when I can get the right county officials to agree. Anybody have any comments?
I just request that you try to get this around the 1st of June if you can.
Shortly after Memorial Day?
That'd be great. The sooner the better.
Okay, the next item is item number 5, 2012-13 capital improvements. Well, we talked about roads. We've talked about the 2 drain projects we want to move forward. Barry, at this point, with water main, the East River Road water main and Byramar water main, which we've talked about a long time, where are we with those 2?
Those 2 projects are on the capital plan for this fiscal year. One of them is the replacement of the water main on East River Road from Ferry to Horse Mill, and the other is on Byramar from West River to Thoroughfare. Those are the 2 items that are on the capital improvements for this year for water. And the sewer project, we're working on the I&I with sewer.
All right. The question I have is, with regard to water main, you've now raised the issue with the number of water main breaks we had this winter on Meridian, that you may want to substitute the Meridian water line replacement for those 2 projects and delay those 2 projects. You're going to bring that Meridian water main project back to us.
Yes.
But the question I have is, last year we bid, as I recall, we bid the East River water main replacement.
That's right.
And now you have to understand, the original water system in the township was built 70 years ago. And on East River Road, which is a major part of the outer perimeter of our water system, you have an old 8-inch line with a lot of breaks in it. And when a water main calcifies over 70 years, it might in some places only have 4 inches of capacity. So at any rate, it needs to be replaced, as do many of them on the island. We took bids on the East River water main. Did we take them on Byramar?
No, we did not.
If we were to proceed with East River, are those bids good, or would we have to?
We'd have to go back. It's a good possibility that it's been so long now, we may have to rebid it, because a year ago.
Sure.
And I think the bids at that time came in at about $1.5 million to do that stretch from Ferry to Horse Mill on East River. And that is replacing a old 6-inch cast iron lead joint line with a new 12-inch.
And how many water main breaks did you have on Meridian in the past year?
In the past 3 years on Meridian, we've had 40.
40 water main breaks.
And on East River Road, we've had 17.
On East River, 17.
Right. And if you'll recall, just to recap what we talked about a little bit earlier, the East River Road project was scheduled for replacement about 6 years ago, and we kept postponing it to this point, and we haven't done it yet. And since that time, Meridian Road water main has failed even more than it was originally. So, and what I posed to the commission is if we're only going to do one project in the next 4 or 5 years, we need to take a look at Meridian, because Meridian may now warrant the replacement over East River Road.
Okay. And when he says we've delayed a water main project, it wasn't because of our will and intent. was because of just general township financing and issues the township was facing, where we couldn't go out and, it wasn't the smart thing, let's say, to bond for $3 million of water main projects faced with some of the other things the township has been faced with. So, at any rate, are there any other questions on our capital program? So we're going to focus on these road repairs.
Could I make just a comment?
Okay.
I don't know if everybody in this room had the opportunity to see the History Channel program on Crumbling Up America and the infrastructure throughout the United States. Extremely interesting program. One of the issues that we've been faced with as a board, as a commission, and as the talking heads of the township will call us, is through mandate by the federal government, the EPA and the DEQ, this township went in debt for the tune of $50 million. Can you imagine how much infrastructure we could repair and we could have done had we not been in debt currently for this $50 million? This was mandated. Nobody in this room voted on that. You weren't asked whether you wanted to spend $50 million. You were told that you would spend $50 million. All that you were asked for is, did you want to pay for it on your water bill, or did you want to pay for it on your taxes? And you voted to pay for it on your taxes. Personally, I would have much rather seen it on my water bill, because I only have 2 people in my house and I got a high tax bill. But majority rules. So these issues over the past 4 or 5 years is one of the major reasons I have no hair. And it's one of the major reasons that I've had trouble sleeping at night through this program. Because how do you address that? We've had to set aside water main projects to do sewer projects. These water main projects, the safety factor alone on the water main projects is huge, because when you have an 8-inch line that goes around this island when it should be a 12-inch line, you're limiting your capacity for firefighting and a number of other issues for clean water service to the community. We do everything that we can and everything possible to ensure that you have that. But it's not your fault and it's not our fault. These are the times that we live in. Would we have dealt with them differently had the same issue came up today? I think we might have. But hindsight's 100%. We all know what we would have done and should have done, but we've already made forward, we've committed, we owe $50 million. Now that bond issue has been reduced now, we're in the $30-35 million range, wow. But we still have to pay that off, and for the next 15 years or so, it's going to be a tremendous burden on every community. And then to top it all off, we sit here with a community of 10,000 people, 4,000 tax-paying residents, and we have to pay that bill. Had we put it on the water bill, we'd have probably all been driving over to Marathon because we couldn't afford to flush our toilets. So it's a crime to look at it, and I can't tell you, and I'll guarantee you there's nobody in this room that's more frustrated than I am about what's happened. And we'll do everything we can to correct this issue. But the one issue that we do have to address is that these water mains, we need to fix them. When you're talking 40 water main breaks in a couple of years, I mean, we're talking a few thousand dollars per water main break in manpower and labor and material. You magnify that by 40, 50, 60, 100. I don't know how many we've had on the island, but it's been probably 300 would not be an exaggeration over the last 3 years. I mean, that's a waste of money. I mean, we're literally wasting our money, and the infrastructure isn't getting any better. I'm not trying to depress you, but I do want you to understand that those are the issues that we have to deal with. You have to deal with it, and I have to deal with it. We have a great community. We're moving forward, and at some point in time, the federal government will start directing funds where they belong. There'll start to be commitments, and until that happens, it's up to us. We're maintaining, that's all we're doing. That's absolutely what we're doing. We're trying to maintain what we have and keep it within a realm that everybody doesn't move because they can't afford to live here or any place. And in our water bills, in the cost of our water is so much cheaper here than it is in other communities around the United States. We've actually got it good, although we feel we have it bad. So it's just important to understand that all of these things are mandatory. They're all necessary. Barry does a heck of a job trying to prioritize this stuff. We had an East River water main that we should have replaced 5 years ago, and we didn't. Maybe 8 years ago. I don't know. We've been talking about this thing. I've been at this for 25 years on this commission. And it's always the same issue. Where are we going to get the money? And in the middle of the time when we think we got the money, the government comes in and says, oh, we want a hunk of that. No, we want a big hunk of that. But we'll fight this board, this commission. These are all taxpayers. None of us get paid for what we do here. And we're trying to do the best with your funds that we can. And it's just a history lesson so that you understand where we're coming from. And there is no answer. But there are steps to get to that answer, and we're trying to follow those steps. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Barry, do I correctly assume that the Meridian water main serves more people than the East River water main?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it serves more people, and the Meridian Road concerns me from the standpoint that when we have a water main break on East River Road, the line breaks and it runs into the river. When we have a water main break on Meridian Road, it actually goes around people's homes and stuff before we can get there to turn it off. So you're right, Frank, there's a lot more houses involved, and the risk of property damage is greater on Meridian Road than it is on East River Road. And it's just, and I don't want to make it seem like we haven't made improvements in the water system. Over the last 10 or 15 years, we've replaced a lot of water main over here. We've put the line around the perimeter, the outside perimeter of the island. West River Road's been done. There's a short segment there that needs to be done. East River Road has been done, except the section from Ferry to Horsemill. That's the last piece on East River Road that needs to be completed. So there's been a lot of water main replacement done in the last 15 years, but we've basically just kind of scratched the surface on the water main that needs to be done. We have water mains that we're replacing that were put in 1930. And they're old, and like Bill mentioned earlier on, they calcify over time. And if you've got the line we're replacing on East River Road is a 6-inch cast iron line that was put in back in the 30s, and it's a lead joint pipe. It's not even a premium type joint that they use today. But that's how long it's lasted. We've got good service out of that water main from 1930 to present, but it's 50 years beyond its due date for replacement. So I don't want to make it sound like we haven't made improvements in the water system. We have, but we have a long way to go. And I don't mean to get on my soapbox, but being responsible for the water and sewer system in this community, I rate those two issues as being number one. You can get by without certain things, but you need fresh potable water to your faucets, and you need to be able to flush the toilet. To me, two top priorities in this community.
The way government works, we do fund accounting so that road funds stay in road funds, water funds stay in the water system, sewer funds stay in the sewer system, and then there's something called general funds, which support police and fire and the general thing we do. Since we're on the capital improvements, we got a report here, and I'll give Chuck a copy of it before you leave tonight, that it's in our packet from the Oakland County Road Commission, who is very much in the forefront of dealing with the gas tax and the inadequacy of road funding. We hear about Wayne County's money depreciating over the years. Well, they're in the same boat as Oakland County, only Oakland County has a sophisticated way to tell people about it. Yeah. Two quotes. This was their third quarter of 2011. The 2012 budget that we've prepared at $100 million represents a decrease of $7.5 million compared to 2011. So that's the first quote. RCOC, which is the Oakland Commission for Oakland County, anticipates receiving $56 million in state gas tax revenues in fiscal year 2012. That's virtually the same amount received in the current year, which was 2011, no growth, which was the fifth straight year the Oakland County Road Commission state revenues declined after being flat for nearly 10 years previous to that time. And the gas tax was stagnant with a 0.5% to 1% increase a year for 10 years, and now it's in decline. So there are fewer road dollars that the counties are getting, and all the cities that get road monies, and townships, we don't get money directly for roads. So Chuck, you can take that before you leave tonight. We like to read all this junk.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Barry. Barry, on the, if we were to substitute Meridian and take East River and Byramore out, on the Byramore water main, does that affect, would that have an effect on their quality of water that they're receiving?
One of the reasons that Byramar is on there is because there's been some water quality issues over there. Nothing over in the township right now are we having any unsafe water. It's safe to drink. We're not even close to that. But in some of the areas where we have dead-end mains, at the end of those mains, we flush them twice a year, spring and fall. And we do that to keep the water fresh and the quality up. But yeah, in some areas of the township, not just on Byramar, we're starting to experience water quality issues.
So would how would the water main affect that, putting in the new water main?
By replacing the Meridian Road one, which Byramar is attached to, it is a good possibility that we would get better quality water on Byramar by doing that also.
So we can, okay.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's a wash or it's going to make it 100% better, but it may improve it, because we'd be getting a fresher water from the Meridian side, which we're not now.
Any further questions or comments? If not, we'll move on to item number 6 that I added, traffic counts. Last fall, we talked about getting traffic counts for a number of our major roads. Those that basically, mostly, Barry, those that are on the federal highway system where we might be eligible for grants someday if the county would ever put us on. But in order to be eligible, we need to get traffic counts. So I think that, and you saw the data that we received from Wayne County, asking all the cities to submit their projects for federal highway funding, and that's a 3-year list, a 3-year wait list, but they're asking for new projects to be submitted. So we need to get the traffic counts done. We need to do them before school ends, or wait till the fall when school begins, because when school's in session, we have a lot more traffic on the roads. So can we get the traffic counts done in May?
I would say
we
so.
Took a proposal
I'll check into it and see.
And I assume that wasn't very expensive. We were talking a couple $1,000.
I believe it was, yes.
To count several of the roads. And the commission was supportive of that at the time. Unless there's any objection, we'd like to proceed with those traffic counts.
Okay. I'll get with you and we'll update the list.
Is there any further discussion on that issue from members of the commission?
Nope.
If not, action items. Action item number 1 is a refuse rate increase. The motion would be to recommend to the Township Board to authorize an adjustment in the refuse rate charged based on the attached spreadsheet effective April 1, 2012. The report goes on to read that for years the Township has been working off a surplus accumulated in the refuse fund, thereby absorbing all fee increases. The surplus has been exhausted, and increases needed to balance the costs for refuse pickup and disposal for the Township's refuse. There's attached a detailed analysis from the Township's Finance Director, Ann Dardisniak, and a memo from Ann. The memo explains the necessity of increasing refuse rates. Now, this is in the Township budget that was approved by the Township Board at their annual meeting last month. Refuse rates have not been increased prior to 1995. The Department of Public Works decided several years ago, and that was us, and I was about I've been on the commission since 2006, I think it was right that year. We decided several years ago to use fund balance that was accumulated in the refuse fund instead of raising rates to cover all costs associated with refuse collections. This includes yard waste, our trash, as well as recyclables. The fund balance as of March 31, 2008 in the Refuse Cost Center was $897,000. However, since then, the cost of providing this service was annually more than what was being collected. Since 2008, expenditures exceeded revenues each year by $163,000. In 2009 and 2010, $214,000. In 2010 and 11, $208,000. And in 2011-12, leaving an estimated fund balance of approximately $112,000 as of March 31, 2012. Therefore, the Refuse Cost Center has been depleted fund balance at a rate of approximately $200,000 a year for the past 4 years. Therefore, at this time, it is necessary to raise the rates to cover the cost of this service on an annual basis. So you have an analysis, and basically, to sum up the analysis, we're talking about an increase of $16.50 a quarter, or $66 per year, which would take our refuse cost for all three of the collections, that is yard waste, recycling, and trash, from $130 a year to $196 a year, $196.20. And I can tell you that we've done surveys and analysis. Most communities have been paying a range of $200 a year per household and more. And so we've stretched this out as long as we can. And that's the brief explanation. Is there any comments, questions?
Just like to make a comment, Mr. Chair.
From the board. Ted?
Back in 2008, the township received 2007, 2008. The township received approximately $900,000 in interest in their savings accounts, which was distributed amongst each account. Back in 2008, a fund balance of $800,000, $900,000 was not a bad thing. It was a good thing because it kept accumulating. When the bottom fell out of the market, I think last year we made a grand total on $13 million of about $23,000 in interest. So it became really insane to start to keep building these funds because we weren't getting anything from them. So this commission recommended the township board, and the township board approved that we start utilizing these fund balances and just quit building these fund balances. We had a number. It wasn't just this account, it was a number of accounts. So we haven't raised our rates because of the interest factor that I just talked about since 1996. Mm-hmm. We haven't raised our collection rate since 1996 because of that interest factor. We were making huge interest on $1 million. We were making a lot of money. Well, that all changed. Now the good guys are the bad guys because now we got to come back and say, hey, we've used up all our savings account. Now we have to pay the dues. I don't think it's unreasonable. I've personally checked a lot of communities. We're still below the norm. And we need to move forward with this because the one thing we don't want is a deficit fund balance. In fact, we can't have a deficit fund balance. The DPS Commission or the DPS Department is an enterprise fund run solely on fees. You pay no taxes for the DPS Department. We charge you for your water, we charge you for your sewer, we charge you for your refuge. And we operate within that budget. So I think it's important that we move this forward.
And I would say, for the record, that if we go back on a couple issues, when we bid the refuse, the companies that bid were within pennies of each other per household, and we took the low bid. And we've seen refuse companies in my 6 or so years here. We're on our third refuse company that's been here because the prior company was bought out by Waste Management, and the prior company before that was on the verge of bankruptcy. And when I first came here, we used to get a report in our packets that contained 40 to 50 complaints every month that the staff received where citizens called because of failed collection of their refuse. And right now, we don't get any.
No.
Correct? And if we do get them, if somebody says they put their garbage out, and you know, a lot of people put their garbage out sometimes after the truck went by, but we try to make sure that they come by every day at the same time. And they go back, and if they miss a house, they go back and pick it up without any question that day. So we're getting pretty good service. We don't have refuse trucks that leak all over either oil or other substances. So those are all things that are in our bid spec. So I think we're getting pretty good service, and again, I know it's very competitive with what others pay. So we've talked about this at budget time, and entertain a motion to deal with this issue. Motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Been moved, supported that the refuse rate and the recommendation to proceed to the Township Board with the rate increase be approved as recommended. Since we have people in the audience, does anybody want to comment on it or not? Have we explained it adequately, hopefully? Seeing none, we'll proceed. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And all opposed? The motion is passed. I'll try to frame the next one, Lorinda, and I'll ask you to try to capture this, but basically I'll just repeat what I said earlier tonight. And we'll frame a resolution that after our April 10th road tour of the roads and other capital projects in the township, we're recommending that engineering estimates be provided, and the engineer was with us today, for improvements on Manchester Road. These would be slab replacements. On Marquette Court, slab replacements. On Stout and Island, about 100 to 150 foot of asphalt surface, milling and resurfacing the approaches leading to East River Road. And Potawatomi subdivision, slab replacements. And in front of 21748 and 21760 Canterbury, slab replacements and catch basin replacements. At HCL Jackson, at Knudsen, asphalt and concrete slab repairs. At HCL Jackson and O'Donnell, I think that's all.
Asphalt repairs.
Asphalt repairs. And to get a price for approximately a budget for crack sealing of about $50,000. Also recommend that, well, I don't have to deal with the Albemarle and Wilbur drain, that's going to be independently pursued, that we add to the drain projects that we wish to get an engineer's cost estimate and preliminary plan how to deal with the drainage problem at Park Lane, the Park Lane School drain, we'll call it. And the engineer knows the area we're talking about. So those are basically a rough outline of the repairs we intend to make. Is there any further comment?
Mr. Chair, I would expand that motion to have engineering and bid. And bid.
Okay.
Well, engineering and bid, but I think on the drain we'll have to deal with it separately because we don't know what
Right, but I'm talking on the road repairs, I think it needs to be engineered.
Engineering bid on the road, we'll separate them then. So we'll do the road, engineering bid on the roads, as outlined.
And just as a suggestion, and I don't think we want it in a motion, maybe while we have these contractors out, we could have them give us a little tighter bid on LaSalle Court for road replacement, so that our people in LaSalle Court have got a little more fixed number. I know the engineering will vary a little bit from that. We're not going to get him to do that. But we've got the contractors out here, so we got a little bit of a hammer over their head. And tell them we want them to throw a price in. It's not going to be part of this package, but at least we could have them.
That's a very good idea. Once we
can have them at least come up to this group and say, well, after they came in and said maybe they're going to say it's 80,000, maybe they're going to say it's 160,000, but it's a number we can at least throw a dart at.
What will help also, too, is a lot of these bids we're going to take on the road repairs are going to be unit price bids. So a square yard of concrete would apply on a patch repair the same as it would on LaSalle Court. So.
It may help move this project. It may not help at all, but we got them here. Let's browbeat them a little bit.
It's a good suggestion. Any further comments from the board? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion's carried. Now, I think we have to take a separate motion on the, what I call is the Park Lane school drain. Ask for, the motion I would propose is that we ask for an engineering estimate and the most reasonable plan to deal with the drainage, because we don't know what it's going to be.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if it's just going to be an engineering estimate and he's not going to do plans.
Well, no, what I'm talking about is a preliminary plan. Let's put that phrase.
All right.
I mean, we need to know where we're going with this. I mean,
All right.
obviously on that one, we're going to have to meet with the schools system because it's their property and they, I'm told, contributed to the end result many years ago.
So how do you want
Do
to...
you think that's, we need that, or can we get Ohio just to give us some preliminary plans and budget? I'm just not sure how to...
Yeah, it would depend. If we're going to spend quite a bit of money, we might need board approval to have him do that.
That's my concern. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I think we do because I think we're going to have to send a survey crew out there. It takes
Yeah.
All right.
to shoot grade and the way the
All right,
drainage is, it's a mess.
go ahead and move forward.
We need board
So
approval.
you have my motion.
Do that.
I'll help Lorinda with the wording. Further discussion of the board. Do we have a motion and support? No.
I support it.
Who made the motion?
No one, unless you did.
Oh, I made the motion, okay. I'll make the motion. I don't get to make motions, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and supported that we ask for an engineer's estimate and preliminary plan how to deal with the drainage problem at Park Lane School. We'll call it the Park Lane School Drain. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that motion's passed. One item that we didn't talk about, but we did on our trip, and I made a note of it, is the need to do tree trimming. Many areas of the township, as you come through this winter, there's a lot of trees that have fallen out of the woods along Meridian and Grosse Hill Parkway in particular, a few of our other major roads, and along a couple of bike paths, where the trees are laying across ditches, in ditches, and it looks unsightly. We have a bid price for that, and I'd just like concurrence from the commission, as we talked about it today, that we authorize staff to go out and get at least 4 days of trimming and cleanup done along our roadsides.
I believe we have that budgeted, right?
That item is budgeted, and just want to confirm to staff that there's support to proceed with that. There's unanimous support?
Yes.
Okay, so the tree trimming, I expect will be done in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And that is, now we open this up to public comment on anything else that wasn't on the agenda. Yes, sir. Woody, come on up.
Woody, you didn't disappoint.
I don't think so. Okay, Woody Clark, Park Lane. Okay, you got a bid. What is the bid for the trees?
It's $200 per hour.
And who's doing it?
TNT, they're our contractor. And that $200 per hour is for all their trucks, their chipper, their crew, all their saws and everything.
And they're going to be down in 4 days, you said?
Well, we're authorizing 4 days worth of work. Yeah.
Okay.
And if it's less, we've already picked out the spots, and I've driven it with Tony from staff, and today we looked at several of them. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of logs that have fallen, trees that have fallen,
So we're talking $200, 8 hours a day,
whatever they were.
and whatever they do.
Talking about $6,000, $7,000
That's it?
to see what we can get done in that period of time.
Okay.
Clean up the township.
Now, you don't handle bike paths anymore?
I think we'd still do it as far as maintenance is concerned, yes.
Are they going to put that bike path in, or are they just going to talk breeze?
There was a meeting held, and I think both Ted and Barry were at it last week.
Just a brief update, the bike path was engineered and bid, came in over budget due to some drainage issues down at Horse Mill and Parkway.
Park Lane.
Park Lane, I'm sorry. And we had a conversation, we had a meeting with Wayne County. They've agreed to work with us. We haven't got it in stone at this point to handle some of these drainage issues, and we're hoping that will bring that cost back to within the budget, and we can proceed with that project this spring. we're hoping.
Also, there's two corners. If Wayne County can't fix them, can we fix them? One is at Parkway and Waterman. People try to go around there and they lose their bottom of their car.
Parkway
When
and,
people are making a left turn onto the new system that we put in going to West River,
Waterway.
Waterway, Waterway and Parkway, people go around that, and there's a ditch that deep. You're gonna lose part of your bottom of your car.
When going westbound,
Westbound.
people are making a left to go down the ramp, people are
Well,
passing
people are
them.
going, yeah, and they're trying to pass them.
They should be in the ditch.
No, they shouldn't.
It's not a passing lane over there.
But people like go around, and you sit there forever. People want to go around them.
That's actually illegal, but,
Oh, who cares?
you know, but,
We do a lot of things illegal. Let's make it nice for them when they do it illegal.
okay.
Also at Horse Mill and Meridian, making a right turn going down Horse Mill East. There's a ditch there. I know, it's not illegal, but people use it, and it's just buried it for a while. If Wayne County could come in, and asked Tony this, if they could come in and just drop some gravel, well, let's make it as cheap as possible, and then throw asphalt on top of it, I think they'd be happy with that.
I'll report it
That's
to
a
them.
Horse Mill and where? And
Parkway.
Meridian.
Horse Mill and Meridian,
When you make a right turn.
make a right turn, and you make it short.
You going west?
You'll find it.
Turn short.
You do a short job, you're going to find your,
We have quite a few intersections like that, Woody, where you're making a turn onto another road, and there's a drop-off.
yeah,
on
there's
the edge
only
of the
two roads
pavement
that I
on
know of
some
so far.
them.
Now, there's other ones that I probably
There are
never drive,
others.
but
Yeah,
those two.
I can't imagine there's a road on this island you don't.
Well, that's possible.
yeah, right.
But anyway, if we can get those shade jobs,
Okay.
and the one that's on Meridian is really bad, there's two or three intertained together.
I'll
Which
check-
help a lot-
I'll check with
a lot of
Wayne County.
people. I don't drive it a lot, but the people on the south end do.
We'll talk to him, thanks, Woody.
And you don't drive it, because you probably take East River, so you don't want to drive it.
Don't get smart.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public about anything not on the agenda? Don't see any hands raised, so now it's, as far as chairman, I don't have anything else that I haven't already said, except we appreciate you being here tonight. We deal with all the fun stuff, garbage, trash, curb, gutters, sewers, and things like that. So it's an exciting commission. Commissioners' reports. Jim, you have anything to add?
I have nothing to add other than we look forward to talking to you people from LaSalle Court and trying to get that street taken care of.
Frank?
Nothing, sir.
Mike?
I'd echo the comments on the cell. I think it's high time. And I also like to say that, Woody, you come to down here every meeting I ever saw. And thank you for being here, because I know you really do care. I appreciate that. I know you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ted?
No, I think I've worn my soapbox out.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Supporting the meeting be adjourned. All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Thank you.